Welcome to the Two Marketing Moms podcast. I'm Kelly Callahan-Poe, and I'm joined by Carli Sidoti, the founder of Buttoned Up Consulting. Today, Carli and I are going to talk about tips for middle management success. Both Carli and I have spent a significant portion of our career as middle managers. Middle managers play a crucial role in organizations, bridging the gap between top-level management and frontline employees. But it takes the right combination of skills, visibility, and strategic networking to help middle managers get noticed. Carli, how would you define middle management in advertising or marketing?
Oh gosh, there's so many descriptions I feel like of middle management in the ad industry and marketing industry. But I think of, I would say us, because I was in middle management for so long. I think of middle management as the position between senior management and the frontline staff, the day-to-day people kind of pulling a lot of the weight. But we as middle managers, again, I'm referring to as middle managers carry so much of the weight, but we're responsible for a lot of things like implementing marketing plans, managing budgets, timelines, all the marketing campaigns, analyzing trends, doing some research. So it's really making sure that all of the marketing activities align with what the client's expectations are, what the goals are for the client's business, but then also the agency, your own organization. You need to make sure that you are adhering to what the agency is expecting of you. So it's a lot of pressure, I kind of think. But then there's also the relationship aspect. So in addition to all the work that you're doing day to day, you are managing the relationship with the client. You're kind of the face of the agency or the face of your own organization, if you think about it, because you're the one that's doing all of the work behind the scenes, working with your internal team, your research, creative, media, and then you report all that back to the client. So I see it a lot of managing client relationship, and then you're also managing that internal relationship. So it's again, like a whole relationship game, dealing with people of all different types of personalities and fire drills, who needs what. It's a lot of trying to make everybody happy. That's kind of where I fell into that once, where I thought, oh, I have to make everybody happy. I want my team to like me. I want my clients to like me. And that was a mark I got on a lot of my reviews, was you can't make everybody happy. I mean, you got to do a good job, but making everybody happy isn't the top priority. So that's just a tip I can give to a lot of the middle managers out there. Don't take it to heart. Just keep doing what you're good at, because it's a lot of pressure.
Well, that leads into the next question, which is really, some of the biggest challenges. But just to kind of reiterate, basically on the advertising side, account director would be middle management, right? Or an account supervisor. And on the marketing side, it might be a marketing director. So you're not VP level quite yet. You have people underneath you, you have people above you. You're just in the middle. And so let's talk a little bit about those challenges. And I found this quote from the co-founder of Intel, Andrew S. Grove, and he said, "Middle managers are the muscle and bone of every sizable organization, no matter how loose or flattened the hierarchy, but they are largely ignored despite their immense importance to our society and economy." And I thought, wow, that is so true, because middle managers are really not often seen as having a big position of power. And so frequently we get tripped up by politics, or they're completely dismissed by senior manager, their peers, and even people who are less senior than they are.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's the biggest challenge for middle managers, is relating to navigating organizational, interdepartmental, stakeholder politics and conflicts and overall power dynamics. And that comes in many different, avenues. It can be everything from managing relationships with so many different stakeholders, with vendors, with external partners, balancing interests of the different departments, managing upwards, managing downwards, managing sideways, competing priorities, competing goals, and navigating all of that, diplomatically. And recognizing that people may or may not have the same goals and objectives that you do. And so there's a lot of challenges, and those power dynamics can frequently become power struggles between you and the other departments or individuals, because everyone wants to secure their own interests, right?
Yeah.
And get support for their individual marketing initiatives or their team success, and not everyone is frequently on the same page.
Mhm.
Thoughts on the politics side of things, Carli, and the power
Yeah.
dynamics?
Yeah, it could be tough. And I hope a lot of people listening right now are going, that's me. Like that is exactly what I'm going through right now because it's relatable to so many people. You don't have to be in the ad industry, but you could work for a big brand and be in the marketing department or another industry altogether. But
Yeah.
in wherever you are, there's going to be a power struggle or those politic dynamics that kind of leaves you feeling like, well, should I say something? Am I going to if I say something, am I going to come across too brash? And could I lose a relationship with this person who thought so well of me? So you kind of have to talk to, I would suggest talking to a trusted mentor within the organization to say like, look, I'm having this struggle. What should I do? Or what have you done in the past? So a trusted senior advisor to say like, here's what's going on. What do you think? Because I've gotten advice too from other peers and trusted mentors within an organization when I've been a little lost and okay, do I tiptoe around this person or do I just kind of keep my head down and say, well, this is the way it's supposed to be? And usually they would give me advice and say, well, that person is who they are, Carli, so you're just going to have to deal with it. But if I don't like it, I've learned the more experience I got in my career, I spoke up more because
Yeah.
there was a point where I thought, you know what, there's nothing to lose. It's a job, but it's also my dignity. And I wanted to be seen as somebody who was working my way up in my career. So if I wanted to be seen, I needed to be heard. So if you are struggling in an issue with power or politics, think about where do you want to go and use your voice for that, wherever you want to go, if that makes sense.
Sure. And what other challenges are you seeing out there for middle managers beyond the politics side of things?
Beyond the politics, so there were two things that I struggled with a lot when I was researching this topic with you, and one was the balancing. I have to laugh about this. Balancing strategic vision with day-to-day operations, because this is something that I got dinged for all the time in my reviews with my supervisor. It was, Carli, you are kick-ass with the day-to-day, the efficiency. You get everything done so fast and perfectly, which I loved. I love getting that, but you never have any room or time to work on the strategy. You don't have time. And I thought, well, yeah, I don't have time because I'm so busy doing the day-to-day stuff. So it was, okay, well, what do we do? Do we hire somebody to help you? And if so, is that going to give you the time to focus on strategy? And I knew that I had that part of my brain. I was able to work on strategy. I just didn't turn it on all the way because I think I was addicted to and loved the day-to-day and the fast pace. So that was my struggle. So I wonder if other people, I'm curious to hear from some of your audience, do they struggle with that also? Or are they like, get me out of the weeds, I want to do the strategy? Because that was something tough for me. And then a second thing that I think a lot of middle management has to work through is managing the diverse teams. And that comes with, at least in my experience, working at an advertising agency, you work with so many different departments, the production team, creative, research, and most of the time we all got along. But there would be times where somebody just cannot take any more on their plate. They can't take people. They're like,
Yeah.
stop talking to me. I'm going in my corner. And you just kind of have to figure out, how do you diffuse the situation? If there is an argument between your creative director and a producer, I talk to both of them separately. It's like being a parent. It's a mom. You're being a parent, and
Yeah.
you are a hand holder. And I talk about that a lot with my team when I worked at the agency. Was your hand holder. You have to hold hands because we are the glue that brings everybody together, and we carry the load and get none of the recognition, but this is us. This is middle
That's
management.
Well, and you see that the most in the advertising world between creative and suits, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
you have more of that kind of personality conflict because our brains are built a little differently, right?
Yeah.
Left brain versus right brain, and you want to be able to see each point of view. And sometimes it takes a lot of time and effort to be able to see both points of view, but it's important to see
Yeah,
both points of view, especially as a middle manager.
it is. And the beautiful things you can do when you all get along and you can kind of humbly sit back and go, I had a lot to do with that. If you win an award, or if you get recognition from leadership, just know you did that. Put it on your portfolio, put it in your development plan when you meet with your supervisor, and say, I was part of this. I was responsible for this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What about resistance to change and adaptability? That's always a big challenge as well, is it not?
It is, and it could be different with each personality type of middle management. So for me, as type A, I have my structure. I I'm kind of open to change a little bit, but I kind of do what I have to do to keep the task at hand. So
Yeah.
I'll do whatever I have to do to make sure the job gets done, essentially. But
Yeah.
I don't know if I could think of any other good examples of that. What about you?
Well, we talked a lot about this in previous podcasts, the pivot. Remember the pivot that we did in during COVID, the COVID pivot? And I
Yes.
feel like the world has changed triply since then with AI. And so we're constantly having to be
Yeah.
adaptable. So we can no longer in advertising do an annual plan, for example. You have to
Yeah.
start to plan quarterly because so much is changing in the marketplace. And that makes work 4 times as much and
Mhm.
communication even more challenging. So making sure that people are not afraid of change and are open to change and changes in the environment, changes in the media, change in media habits, and open to those things is really a big part of middle managers' jobs
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well.
That's true. And expecting the unexpected. It's like the same thing. All of a sudden, a client's budget can be like, we
Yes.
don't have any more money. Stop everything you're doing, and we'll tell you what to do next. And you're just sitting there like, oh my gosh, what about our projections for the agency? That
Yeah.
impacts so
How are
many
you going to make
things.
your awareness numbers? How are you going to do
Yeah.
XYZ? But you
Yeah.
have to be prepared for that. And being, malleable and adaptable is a big part of being a strong manager.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
budget allocations, timing, those sort of thing, timesheets, that's another big one that, causes a lot of stress and a lot of conflict, making sure that people appropriately, bill their time to the appropriate jobs and, are not padding their time and, making sure that budget allocations
Yeah.
are dealt with right away with the clients and there's no issues about going over budget and giving clients a heads up is a huge thing as well, I've noticed.
Definitely, definitely, because that impacts the agency's bottom line also. You're hurting the agency if you're padding your time.
Yes.
And you can get screwed if the client all of a sudden is like, I need to see all of your numbers versus your hours, and procurement gets involved. So you never want to lie. You just kind of want to do what's right, so the agency gets paid for what they are supposed to get paid for, and then the client sees, okay, I have a trusted partner who's giving me the value that I'm asking for.
Plus, those numbers are used for projections in the future, so
Yeah,
they're important that they're accurate.
exactly.
All right. There's also things like influence and persuasion. How do you build effective communication and negotiating and building consensus among those diverse groups? And I think that's another component of the diversity aspect and managing diverse teams that you talked about.
Hmm.
And so are, managing perceptions about suits versus creatives or this department versus that department. You have your own reputations and your own perceptions, and you have to be able to navigate those dynamics and make sure that your department itself, builds credibility, is known as, known as a department that can deliver,
Yeah.
that you have established trust, that you've demonstrated leadership, that you are able to gain support for your marketing efforts. So that to me is another big, huge one that falls on the shoulders of the middle manager.
Yeah. You want people to want to work with you. You don't want people to dread when they're like, oh, I got to work with Carly on that project. I hope nobody's ever said that about me, but you know, I've heard that before with other people, and I feel bad for that middle manager, because I'm like, God, well, what are they doing that you don't want to work with them? I want to help. I want to figure it out, and just I always want everybody to get along. Maybe that's a bad trait of my account management side.
No, I think that's a good thing. So let's kind of diverge a little bit and talk about, how did you get noticed as a middle manager? Do you have any advice for other people about how they can get noticed?
Yeah. And I tell a lot of my employees this when I used to work with them, and I even tell a lot of my mentees, is I want them to be seen and be heard. And it doesn't have to be as an industry leader or a thought expert. I want people to see your personality, and I want you to shine first. But then with that, I want you to show what you've done, what you're knowledgeable about, or something fun to share. So we, at the agency I worked at before, we would do weekly staff meetings, or we do knowledge sharing meetings. And I would always try to encourage people I work with to get out in front of that staff. So if you did a case study of a digital campaign and it performed really well, I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to go up there and present it. It's very uncomfortable. I remember hating to have to do it, but you get seen, people see your face, they hear your
Yes.
voice, they hear how you speak, and it's good practice for you as middle management to be put in those uncomfortable situations and realize, oh, it's not that bad, or I need practice, so I'm going to keep getting out in front of this staff. So I always say that is a good way to get noticed and heard. And then, hand in hand, the wanting to do continuing education and wanting to learn more about your industry is great. You're going to want to volunteer to do that, because then people are going to see, oh, this person's interested in continuing, which is going to be of value to my clients and value to the agency. But then you take that back, all that knowledge back to your agency or to your clients, and say, hey, I went to this really cool webinar, and I'm going to share some things I learned with you. So
Yeah.
now you're thought of and seen as a thought expert and somebody who's hungry for more education and knowledge. I like that. And then something a little bit more fun that I was always big into when I was in my 20s and 30s was trying to gather everybody together for happy hours.
Yeah.
They do a volleyball team at the agency I used to work
Right.
at. I did a kickball team once at a different place. That really fosters a personal relationship outside of work, but then inside too. It's nice to know your coworkers at a different level, even if you don't work with them on the same client or same project. You just know you work with like-minded people who are fun and cool, and it's something else for you to look forward to outside of work. But being up and telling people like, hey, I'm starting this league, you should join, is another way to kind of get seen, and the agency or your corporation to take note that, hey, this person is interested, and being proactive in building relationships and client, or what is it called? Building employee morale is what I'm kind of
Yeah.
trying to say. It's like they're doing the work for the agency.
Yeah, and that's absolutely essential. And that kind of leads me to another thought about, filling the hole. There's a lot of places that you might find where there's a hole within an agency or in a marketing firm. And how
Mhm.
can you fill that hole? So I'll give an example. One of the agencies I worked with early on, the head of the media director left. And she was the only media director in the agency. And so I said I would step in and take that role because I trained as an assistant media planner early on in my
Yeah,
career. So I knew some of that, and then helped find and train a new media director for the agency. Well, because I held that role for 6 or 9 months in that transition, and I volunteered to do that, then I was able to get a raise and an increase. So making sure
awesome.
that you're looking and seeing where the holes are,
Yep,
and are there ways that you can fill, whether you know it or not, even if you're just volunteering to kind of be a Band-Aid until that problem is solved, is a great way to get noticed by senior management
totally.
and demonstrate initiative.
That's a
So
great example.
yeah, so there's a book that I read called Never Split the Difference by a former FBI negotiator called Chris Voss. And he has a recent quote that I actually just saw a video on Instagram where he talked about one of his friends from high school was giving advice about, when you're being interviewed to take a position and the types of roles that you want to take on. And he says that he always requests when he's interviewing, he says exactly this: I want to be guaranteed to work on projects that are critical to the future of this company.
Mhm.
So if you're starting with that in
Yep.
terms of when you're interviewing, or when you're
Yeah.
speaking to senior management, you are not going to climb the ladder unless you are doing things that are hitting the bottom line. And so
Mhm.
you have to consistently exceed performance expectations and deliver tangible results. And
Yeah.
that may be everything from, being a more efficient team in terms of how you're handling your hours, or more efficiently bringing in some software, for example, increasing revenue, implementing cost saving measures. When your work directly contributes to the organization's success, it's going to get noticed. But
Oh
that
yeah.
means that you have to take initiative and you have to be brave in order to do that, right? And just
Mhm.
like you talked about speaking up with
Yep.
people, you have to be able to take those. You don't wait for instructions. And I think what I do see a lot of times now in lower management, and sometimes even in middle management, is they're waiting for me to tell them what to do.
Right. Yep.
I never waited for people to tell me what to do. I just did what I thought needed to be done. It may have been found obnoxious at the time,
But
but I
that
did,
got you seen.
but I did
Absolutely.
it. Don't
Yes.
wait for instructions. If something needs to be done and you've identified a problem and you have a potential solution, take the initiative. Here's the problem. Here's the solution. Here's what we should do. And
Please.
be
Yes.
proactive. And then you will be recognized. But that requires a certain amount of strategic thinking, right?
Yeah.
And knowledge about where the organization is headed. And so making sure that your departmental goals are aligned with overarching company strategic goals is an essential part of that, and understanding the big pictures, and
Mhm.
making sure that your tasks and your KPIs are all lined up. And so those KPIs, so here's a book that I love, for example, Measure What Matters. I'm
Oh
always a
yeah.
reader about OKRs. And so there's all sorts of books out there about objectives and key results, and how you can make your OKRs lead up into the KPIs for the company within your department. And so everything that you're doing is lockstep with the organization as a whole. And that will demonstrate your strategic thinking. It will demonstrate your ability to analyze data and trends and market challenges, and anticipate changes and opportunities, and be proactive with regards to planning and resource
Oh
allocation,
yeah.
that sort of thing.
And even impress leadership at your organization, because when they hear you saying those words and speaking like you are a leader too, they'll be like, oh my gosh, this person, we're going to invest in them. They're going somewhere in this organization. I want to keep them. So that's definitely a good way to get noticed. And shoot, one thing that I wanted to add to that I would give a little tip is, I used to do this. I would go out to lunch with the CEO once in a while.
We love it.
I was so uncomfortable, but I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to do it. One day I was feeling bold and I was like, can we go out to lunch? And I asked those questions, and I wanted to hear from him, what does he see for the future of the agency, and where does he want to go? Because when you hear it from his mouth, I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to help make sure that I'm a part of and focus on, so that all the leaders know that that's what I want to do. So I would encourage anybody, a supervisor, VP, or middle management, go to a supervisor or VP or C-suite if you feel comfortable, and say, let's go out to lunch. I want to hear about your goals for the organization, where maybe I could help.
I love that. And a lot of people don't have the guts to do it. You also have to be careful because you don't want to be seen as, reaching over your supervisor, right?
Yeah,
So there's politics involved in some of that. But most of
exactly.
the senior people don't necessarily get asked by people from middle management to go to lunch, for example. So I would imagine that that would be a positive thing. And
Yeah.
that's related to a lot to this idea of mentorship and sponsorship. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, yes. And I love mentoring other people within my organization, just because it's so fun. And I was where they were at this time. But having maybe a mentorship program within your organization, if you don't already, start one.
Yeah.
I said, start up something if you want to take initiative and be seen. But being able to share someone's experience or listen about someone's experience in the agency can definitely help be seen as somebody who is, again, proactive, wanting to work their way up, invested in your organization. Because I know I had a mentor that I think I had asked for one, or it may have been assigned, but I kept up with it. And that's the other thing too. If you're middle management, you get assigned a senior mentor, or You ask for one, keep up with it. It is your responsibility as a middle
Yeah.
manager to keep that mentor-mentee relationship going. Because then again, it shows you are reliable, you're determined. And I know that that senior mentor that I met with a lot would report back on my conversations to my supervisor and leadership. So again, it's you're being seen in a good light when you keep up and you're proactive and you're taking initiative. So I definitely think having a mentor or mentee is helpful. So either way, if you are working with somebody above you or a direct report or somebody younger.
That can also include networking too, right? Making sure that not just within the organization, but outside of the organization, it can help you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Networking outside of the organization. It could be past coworkers or a coworker who maybe went to a different organization. And I would say, hey, can I come to your office? I want to see what it's about. Show me around. Not that
Yeah.
you're looking for another job, but I want to see what's happening over there. And then, you meet somebody else and you become friends or you're known and you're seen. Actually, like
That's the
ad fed
key.
too. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just say that's the key. It's visibility. You're
Visibility.
not going
Yeah,
to recognize unless you're visible. So those ideas that you have about, taking on employee morale or filling a hole, that makes you more visible than you would, or taking on a high profile project, are things that are going to help you get the recognition that you need, um,
definitely.
and demonstrate your skills.
Hmm.
All
Yeah.
right. Any other areas of potential tips that we can talk about?
I would say communication is also strategic communication. It's huge. Again, talking to knowing who your audience is. So if you're having lunch with the CEO, your conversation is going to be a little different than it would be with a mentor versus a peer.
Yeah.
So consider who you're speaking with.
Yeah.
And even written communication, however you are presenting yourself, you are the face of the agency. So any words that come out of your inbox and into somebody else's, or out of your outbox into somebody else's, is representative of who you are and who your agency is. So you kind of have to think about that. And then another tip that I would have, I guess is kind of off topic, but it's tip for middle management is, if you want to know how you're performing as a middle manager with your communication or any of the skills, I would recommend doing a 360 review,
Yeah.
because that is bold, but it's so validating. It's scary, but it's like, I want to know how I'm performing. I think maybe I'm a little short on my strategic planning, but I'm great with my tactics. And that was pretty apparent when I got my 360 feedback in. But I would encourage people, if they want to know what they can improve on, ask their supervisor to send out a 360 review.
Yeah, those are a challenge because sometimes they only come out once a year. So I prefer to do weekly check-ins with my team members and say, how am I doing? How can I improve? How can I help you do your job better?
Yes,
How are you being supported? How do you need more support? And asking
yeah,
those questions on a regular basis.
absolutely.
It's obvious that you're listening. And then not just, we have a whole other episode on managing up as well. So it's not just managing the people underneath you, it's also managing up and making sure that you're confirming that you're giving what is needed from senior management, because you don't always know that.
Yes, and that was something that was written in one of my 360s, was I needed to work on managing up a little bit. And that was the first time I ever heard of it. And when I was like, well, give me an example. And it hit me and I was like, you're absolutely right. I didn't realize I should have been approaching it this way. And I did it because I thought it was a personality. I didn't want to overstep. But hearing that feedback was, you know what? Good. Then I know, and I'm going to go ahead and fix that. And I did. But yeah, it's interesting. It really is. And even, one thing too, when we're talking about managing down, I encourage a lot of the people too, who I've worked with, is you're not too above doing spreadsheets. Like,
Yes.
even as like a VP, when I was a VP, I would see my supervisor still stepping in, taking one for the team, doing status reports, doing the billing. And it's just because it's like, we're a well-oiled machine. We're a team. We could help each other out. We got each other's backs, but I'm not above doing junior level work if I have to, for lack of a better word, because it's like, you got to do the work and be humble, just do a good job, be a team player. So that's something I like to tell people too, as they progress in their career. Remember your beginnings and where you came from.
I love that. And I always say it's, we're backing each other up. Account people especially need to back each other up. And everyone needs to be able to assist if someone's out, or if someone's not around, or if someone's not at 100%. There's got to be
Yeah.
someone that can support, and middle management should be able to do that without having an attitude about it.
Yeah. And it's kind of like a leadership 101 kind of thing too.
Mhm.
It's, be a good leader, be a good person.
Yeah. And then, so that's also kind of leading to the idea of fostering a positive work environment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you want to make sure that you're, recognizing employees' efforts. And you talked about, giving an opportunity for people to stand up and speak and present their work, for example, once in a while in public, which is challenging, but it's important not just for you to do it, but to let your team members do it as well, so that they can have a voice.
Yep. Yep. And then ask how are they feeling? With the younger generation too, learning, okay, they want positive reinforcement, of course. You kind of sometimes have to be a little bit careful with critical feedback, but asking a lot of times, like, how are you feeling? Because I did want to make sure that I was checking in with their emotional, mental well-being when it came to workload. Are you okay? Do you need a
It's very
break?
true. It's
No.
very true. I
Yeah.
find myself doing that a lot more post-COVID, because we're seeing a lot more mental health
Yeah.
issues and people needing to take time. And it's also a matter of always remind people, um, if you can take 5 minutes after every hour of work, take a 5-minute break, even for
Yeah.
myself, because, and especially getting outside at least once a day. Go walk the dog if you're working from home, take a walk around the block, go listen to some music, do a quick yoga break, because mental health is extremely important, and you can't do your work unless you have that positive mental state to be able to do it in. So
Yeah.
fostering that positive work environment and demonstrating that as a middle manager, and especially as a mom, right? And
Yes.
so, modeling that, yes, I'm a mom and my kids are my priority. And so that's that time where I have to go and stop and get my kid at the bus, right? Or I need to stop work because my kid has, a sports contest, et cetera, et cetera. And I think showing that, mom or dad, that that's a priority, and that family is a
Yeah.
priority,
Uh-huh.
is important to show
Yep.
that we are a balanced work environment,
Yep.
and we want people who are balanced working in this
Yep.
organization.
Yep. It's huge. It's huge for leaders to exhibit that.
So any books that you recommend, or media resources on tips for middle management?
Yeah, I would, when I was in my middle management prime, a book that I loved, and I know it's more geared towards females, but it was Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. And it just happened to so be at the time that I had just given birth to my son. So I was feeling very like driven to be a great career mom, and I was gonna kick ass and everything. So that one I really enjoyed. I mean, men of course can also get a lot of good information out of it, and the struggles that she had in leadership. But that is a good book. And then generally I like to listen to a lot of podcasts or audiobooks about basic operations. So for instance, I remember I downloaded an audiobook a long time ago. It was like Economics 101. I haven't been in college in a long time. So
Yeah.
I needed a refresher, just because I wanted to make sure I was up to speed with, all right, how are the operations of the business? Or how should I be thinking about it? Should I be thinking about it differently? I would sit in on some finance meetings at the agency too. That's something different. But what else did I do? Oh, basic finance for managers.
That's
I got a
great.
book about that, and it's just to kind of look up, and again, like a refresher. What are some of the things I need to be thinking about as if I'm operating this agency myself? Because I knew one day I was going to go out and do my own thing like I am now. But middle managers, I'm telling you now, like, it's good for you to know all the operations of the business and your client's business, because that's what's going to make you so valuable when you are promoted and you are senior management and VP and beyond.
Absolutely. And obviously, of course, industry specific stuff, as you mentioned as well, especially client specific, whether you're working on healthcare or military veterans or whatever the particular organization or company that you're working with, really understanding those industries and demonstrating your knowledge in those industries is extremely.
Yes, really important.
So, to recap, middle management is tough. It's a place where you and I both had challenging times, and a lot of people do have challenging times. And there are ways to get yourself out, but it does take some working smart and being strategic and developing, a professional brand that distinguishes you as a valuable asset to your organization and someone who is going to bring new ideas to the table and continuously improve the KPIs of the company and the value of the company, and really understands the direction the organization is headed. So there's so many opportunities that are out there. Anything else to add, Carli?
No, I think this is great. I hope that it's inspiring and motivating to the listeners, and I can't wait to hear some of the people's feedback on how they've maybe made changes to be seen and be heard, or if they have any questions. It'd be fun.
Well, thanks for listening, and please share your tips for middle management with us on our social media channels. Thanks, Carli.
Thank you.